today I'll talk about this camera here. This is the Sony A7R4 and this is a follow-up review of this camera. I'm Richard and welcome to ZP Productions, and this is a follow-up review of the A7R4. And I would say that I've been using quite a bit of cameras for the past 1 year plus. I actually reviewed the A7R4 a few months back. Look at the link up there. The thing is that I'm a Canon user. I'm also a Fuji user, and this is a set loaned to me by Sony Singapore and SLR Revolution. And there are some things that I find is fantastic about this camera, and some things that I find that could be improved, and hopefully it will one day, because those are limitations due to the menu and the flip-up screen. I will talk about that later. Now, if you have followed my channel, you should know that I'm a portrait photographer. I do a lot of portraiture, and to me, portraiture is like 90% of what I do. So I really will just come down straight to this camera as a portrait camera. And if you do not want to listen to the entire review, I will tell you straight up, the A7R4 is probably the most capable camera, at least today before the R5 is launched. I do not know how the R5 will work out. It is definitely the most capable camera if you are using it for portraiture on a full frame system. We are looking at just the camera, not the lenses, not the system itself, but as just the camera, it is definitely the most capable camera. Now let's move on to what I want to talk about this review. There are 2 things that I don't like and 4 things that I think is totally great about this camera. As I said, the summary, the ending is there already, so let's move on to know what I think about this camera itself. Okay, first up, I want to talk about the 2 things I don't like about this camera. Firstly, I think the menu system is just confusing. I think if you just read online, I own quite a bit of systems. I own the Olympus, the Canon, the Fujis, be it the X series or the GFX series. I also play with the Panasonics, the Nikon, and I think that this probably has the most complex menu system because it has so many pages and 2 or 3 layers at times, and it really confuses me. Now, the menu is not usually a big deal and something that you can overcome it by some Google and maybe 15 minutes of your time. So I don't think it's a con, it's just something irritating, after using so many camera systems. I think the Sony need to improve their menu system itself. Now, the next thing that I want to talk about is the flip-up screen or the lag of it in the Sony A7R4. Being a portrait photographer, I do shoot, I say a good 30, 40, 50% of my photos in portrait mode. And not only that, with longer and longer lens, if you have seen my earlier videos, I always say that longer lens allow you to do a lot of compression, and therefore you can shoot from the waist, shoot from the leg, and get really nice straight up shot. Now, without the ability to flip your screen up in any way, be it the EVF flip up or the LCD flip up, I would say as it's really, really hard. Short of proning on the ground and getting yourself dirty, you will not be able to see what you are shooting at times. Luckily, the AF is really, really good, and more often than not, I can just trust the AF to get the shot I want. But if not, framing and AF with this camera is really hard in portrait mode without a flip-up system. Now, this is a hardware limitation, and I'm sure Sony knows how to do a screen that flips up in many ways. I mean, you can just do whatever the USR or whatever your cine cameras are doing. Is quite an easy solution, but maybe Sony just don't think that it is the case for their photo cameras. But definitely, when doing portrait mode with this camera, without the ability to flip up, it is just a bit harder and more complicated, or you have to get yourself dirty by proning on the ground. That's not something I want to do. Okay, so I really talk about the 2 things I don't really like about the camera. Let's talk about the 4 things that I think is fantastic of this camera itself. Firstly, is the battery life. So when I loaned this camera out, it was before this whole affair around the world today. I did a few shoots and I didn't charge the camera since then. I left it around there, and after this whole affair, I managed to do some shoots and I continued shooting and shooting and shooting. I'll say as safely, this battery in the A7R4 could last about 5 of my shoots. So my shoot lasts about 45 minutes. I take about 50 to 80 photos. So it is the best performing battery life camera I have on my hand, or should I say I ever used. No other system can last more than 3 shoots. The GFX, even with 2 batteries, lasts maybe 4 shoots. And the USR to me lasts about 3 shoots, and the Nikon Z series I remember lasts about 3 shoots too. So this is definitely the longest battery life camera out there, and that is definitely important if you are doing things like wedding, you do things like travel, landscape. It definitely matters a lot. Now, of course, you could say you could put a grip and then have 2 batteries there, right? Like the GFX100 has 2 batteries inside. But imagine the bulk and weight of that system itself. Adding a grip easily adds like 400 grams to the system, and that makes a lot of difference if you are trying to travel light. Now, of course, I'm holding a 85 1.4 here, but Sony has tons of lens today, and definitely you can get a really light setup if you want to. And the light setup, definitely you don't want a battery grip. One of the best battery life you can get in the market today for a full frame camera. And the next thing I want to talk about is I would say is the AF system on this camera itself. The AF system on this camera, I'm really sure the only camera in the market today better than this camera is the A9 series, which is their own Sony camera itself. I have used quite a bit of brands, as I said earlier, and even the EOS R with the latest firmware is nowhere as good as this. This camera is just more responsive. It is also faster, and it drives the lens really hard. This is the few cameras that I could take a model spinning around and get a sharp shot, because the moto and the AF response is so good that by the time when the model turns towards the camera, there is a shift of this difference between the eye and the hair. There is just this small little difference, and this camera can keep up and shift the lens to the eye. I'll say the hit rate of this camera easily is twice the hit rate of my EOS R when it comes to motion shots, be it spinning, running, walking, jumping. This definitely does better. Now, that being said, I don't think the IF is really as impressive as I want it to be. I've seen my friend shoot the A9 before. I think that is really impressive. But with the A7R, there is so many ways to confuse it. And being me who shoots a lot of conceptual, cosplay, backlit scenes, those are the scenes that just confuses the IAF system quite significantly. And for the backlit scene itself, I could never really get it to be focused at the way I want. And for, I'll say, as heavy makeup or cosplay stuff, it probably never detects the face most of the time. So IAF is something that is really nice if you are shooting standard portraiture, be it fashion, be it casual, be it daily lifestyle style of photography. I think this guy will do really well. But if you're doing cosplay, conceptual, anything with thick makeup, backlit light, the IAF will not work as what you think it will. I think the A9 does slightly better, but not on this camera, definitely. Now, the next thing I want to talk about is the lag time of this camera itself. This camera, when you boot up, there is lag time. It's not the fastest camera to boot up. But when you shoot with this camera, I find that the lag time with the EVF and the LCD, one of the lowest that there is. When I say lag time, I'm not talking about the shutter, blackout, latency thing. No, I'm talking about when I see what's on the screen and I press my shutter down, I want to capture that screen I'm seeing, and there is a lag. And this is the reason why I would say the old mirrored DSLR still has an edge over most of the mirrorless, because even on the EOS R or the, I would say as the the GFX100, when I press the shutter down, it is always slightly behind, and for the GFX100 it's actually quite a bit behind. In fact, the GFX100, I must open both of my eyes to take a scene if the scene involves things like throwing dresses, flipping the hair, or swinging around, because the LCD and the EVF is just slightly slower, and this slightly slower will cause me to lose my moment. Now, with the A7R4, I find that there is almost no lag time. When I see the image on the back of the frame, when I press the shutter, it usually always is that moment that I want. I can remember in the mind, because it's like suddenly you black out and then you show the image back. The A7R4 tend to have the best keeper among all the camera system I've tried so far. And I think that the lack of latency, or say as the lack of lag between what you see and what you shoot, is a very important thing, especially for portraiture. It's because flipping the hair and flipping the skirt just happens too quick. More often than not, it's just half a second or 0.something seconds. And really, all you have to do is press the shutter at the right moment. And the A7R4 allows you to do that very well. And the last thing I want to talk about in the A7R4 is the image quality of this camera itself. In the market itself, I think the A7R system is the leader. Of course, the Z7 is as good, but if you can go online and see the review and stuff, the Z7 does suffer from things like bending and stuff. I think Sony kind of fixed all these problems. I never noticed any bending. I noticed dynamic range is good, color retention is great, and if you ask me, at least at a full frame level, this is as good as it gets when it comes to those parameters: dynamic range, color retention. lifting of shadows, bending. This guy is as good as it gets. And let's not forget, it has 61 megapixels, making it the highest, densest camera itself. And I have tried before, if you shoot at the optimal range of f5.6, it doesn't look any much different from the GFX100. And I own the GFX100 for a long time. I can tell you, I have put them side by side, and I'm really sure about the result that if you are both using great lenses, I think the 85 1.4 is not the greatest. I think the 135 probably will do better. But if you put both these cameras side by side, you may not be able to tell a difference when you look at them at the pixel level. Now, coming to the conclusion of this system here, I think the A7R4 is the best full-frame mirrorless camera with a high-resolution sensor for the purpose of photography. Of course, the latest EOS R5 with its mind-blowing video functions may beat this in video, but when it comes to photo-wise, I think that the Sony sensor will outperform the Canon. That is my personal thought. Sony sensors will outperform the Canon sensors. At least Canon have not shown a sensor that beat the Sony sensors. And with the higher megapixels, nicer color, better dynamic range, better shadow recovery, even if it's 0.2 stop, it is still better. And I think that this A7R4 represents the best performance for a high-resolution camera and one of the nicest AF still. I think the R5 will at most par it. I don't think R5 will beat it, but we have to see when the R5 is out. If not, if you ask me today, if you are a Sony user looking for a high-resolution camera, the A7R4 is definitely for you. If you are a person that's looking to change a new system for the purpose of photography, being wedding, portraiture, or what's not, willing to dump all your lenses, the A7R4 and the Sony system is definitely good for you, especially with so much third-party support today. You can buy a lot of third-party lenses in addition to a very big line of first-party lenses. Now, if you are a person like me who have multiple systems today, multiple lenses from the systems, and you really buy a system due to its lens itself, I don't think the A7R4 is for you. Firstly, it's not worth to sell your lens. It just costs you so much hassle. And secondly, if you have bought the system due to the lens itself, definitely I think that Sony can provide something similar, but may not be the quality that you want. I personally think that the 85 1.2 is superior to this 85 GM, but that lens is a lot newer and it is a lot more expensive in addition to weighing a lot more. So, that is something that you have to consider. So, in the end of the day, I would definitely recommend you, if you are a Sony user looking for a new camera, if you are a user willing to dump your entire system, A7R4 is definitely for you. For everybody else, as I said earlier, you should just buy the high-resolution camera of the system and call it a day, because if you know how to use the system, it will definitely perform the way you want it, at least for portraiture itself. And that's about it for today's video. I hope you enjoy it, and I will see you next time in my next video. Do remember to like and subscribe below if you want to see more content. If not, I will see you next time. Bye-bye.